losing power against other currency? Is the USD losing its stronghold on the world? Is the USD at fear? Is it possible that it not be a reserve currency anymore? That is the question, right? The question is as follows, okay? Is the US dollar at risk of not being a reserve currency? Is the USD losing its value? Right? That is a question. Is it losing its value? And that is what we are going to explore today. Now, one thing that we can say is this, that the US dollar has lost some of its value against the euro. Yes, it lost against the euro. And most importantly, what does it mean for you? Well, what it means for you is that if the dollar ever loses its value, then we're going to have a problem refinancing. How we're going to refinance the debt. Okay, so there's two topics here. There's the value of the dollar and the dollar as a reserve currency. So if to refinance this debt, if no one wants dollars, then we are in trouble. That is a black swan right there, right? Is this at risk of happening now? No, but again, it's tied to the debt. Okay. That is what we need to worry about. What does it mean for you? Okay. Now, if the dollar loses its value like it has, then it is good for importers. Because it's good for U.S. export because it makes the goods cheaper, right? So the question is this. There's two main questions we need to answer right now. Hello, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's learn a little bit about the dollar and why do you even care what the heck is the dollar doing. I'm going to tell you why this is important for you to earn the dollar, because there's two things. Either the dollar is losing its value, which is one thing, and it has lost its value, and this is kind of what the government is looking for. And is the dollar at risk of not being a reserve currency? And that is a problem. Now, before we go any further, let me give you a little bit of history so that you learn something this morning. Because at the end of the day, I want you guys to know and learn and understand so that you make up your own mind. But first, you need to understand what happened. So you need to realize that it started in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference, when there were two visions at that time. They were saying, what should we do? Should we make the dollar or should we create a new currency? At that time, believe it or not, they wanted to name a neutral currency called the Bancor. And at that time, Keynes, who ended up being a spy, by the way, he wanted to create this thing called the Bancor, right? Create a large persistent trade surpluses and deficits as equal problem, and he would always make sure you would never have a trade deficit, because right now the U.S. has a twin deficit. It's got a fiscal deficit and a trade deficit. Now, these are black swans for the future. I mean, I don't think this is a big issue right now, but you need to know what this is so that you fully understand before you get into the market, because if this thing blows up one day, that could be a lot of trouble. So what we're going to find out is, what happened. So basically, they ended up saying, you know what, the dollar is going to be the reserve currency. Everyone in the world is going to use the dollar, because we were the strongest at that time, to become a reserve currency. Okay. So then the world was basically forced to acquire US dollars to conduct international trades. Basically, if you wanted to buy anything, you would give something and someone would give you a piece of paper, But that piece of paper was valuable, extremely valuable, because it was a dollar. Now, this obviously created a demand for dollars that was separate for the demand for American goods, separate things, right? So you need dollar. I don't want your goods. I want your dollar. So that means that obviously it was great for us. But the thing is that then you have to, how'd you get the dollar? You have to create basically, treasuries, and that increased our debt a lot, so that in order for people to be providing dollars, you have to create the dollars. So the world was forced to acquire US dollars to conduct international trades. Now, of course, be careful what you wish for, because the very system America designed to benefit from its trade surpluses eventually created the condition for its chronic trade deficits. We are now living in the long-term consequences of that decision. So you need to understand that. Loan, Deku, what are you guys doing? Right? This is what it is. This is where we are now. This is not something that Trump created, right? That was meant to happen. So understanding this history is the first step to designing a more stable future. So understand that, right? So what's happening right now? Well, is a trouble is a dollar in trouble? Let's deal first of all with the fact whether or not, and because I want my subscribers to be informed, and I want you to understand, and I would like you to subscribe, by the way, please do that. I want you to let's see first of all, is a dollar at risk of not being used? Well, what do you use dollars for, right? There's SWIFT payment, foreign exchange reserves, foreign exchange transaction volume, cross-border loans. So when it comes to SWIFT payments, and by the way, I don't know if you remember, but we basically, Biden basically weaponized the dollar when he told the Russian, you don't belong in the SWIFT payment. But right now, SWIFT payment, 48% is done in US dollars, 24% euro, and 3% China. So, China is not about to replace the US that yet as a reserve currency, right? In terms of foreign exchange reserves, 58% is in US, 20% in euro. So you could see US way ahead of everyone in terms of foreign exchange and SWIFT payment. Foreign transaction volumes, 88% is in dollars. I mean, number one is number one, right? Cross-border loans, 47%. Shares of global GDP, 26% for the dollar. So basically, the dollar is really, really on top of everything else, and it's tough for anyone to say, you know what, I am going to be the one that's going to do it now. Of course, the trick is what is Trump's view on this, right? Because his view is that he wants the dollar to be weak, right? Trump has emphasized this point during a recent cabinet meeting in response to the BRICS country. Be careful. The BRICS countries want to dethrone the dollar. Now, this is important for you, right? I will tell you why. If we lost the world standard dollar, they would be like losing a war. The dollar is king. I will tell you why this is important. His language underscores his view that maintaining dollar dominance is crucial to U.S. global power. Tariffs as a defense of the dollar. He has directly tied his tariff threats to preserving the dollar international role. Even though he wants the dollar to be a little weak against other countries, he doesn't want it to be forgotten, right? So he's going to tariff these BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, blah, 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 10% extra. And he argues that high interest rates not only hurt growth, but also influence the dollar's strength. He has called for a rate cut of around 3 basis points. Yeah, because basically what he's telling the Fed chair is that, why are you keeping rates so high, right? You got to lower the rates. You've got to lower the rates. Now, what's interesting is, even though, and this is a topic that needs to be discussed, even though we have higher rates in the US and in Europe, yet the dollar is getting stronger, the euro is getting stronger against the dollar. So there's something going on between those two currencies that we need to be aware. I think that there may be a player against the dollar. Somebody is making money off the fact that they want to prop up a currency like the euro, which is not that strong, against the dollar, which pays more, and yet, there's less demand for it. So the dollar is central to American power. Now, the reason why, let me tell you why Trump wants a strong dollar. But more importantly, not in terms of currency, but in terms of being the currency that's most used. Because if tomorrow the US, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, if tomorrow the dollar is not being used anymore or less, what happens when the US wants to refinance its debt? Where is it? Who is going to be buying the treasuries in order for the US to pay those $37 trillion that needs to be refinanced? And by the way, $9 trillion needs to be refinanced this year alone, right? What's going to happen? Well, if you can't get it, if they don't want it, if they don't want to refinance your debt, then the US will need to print more money in a currency that no one wants. And that, my friend, this is not for now, but this is in the future. I don't know when the future is, but that is a major black swan. We're talking about it. Now, of course, Trump is not a stupid man. He knows that the dollar dominance is key, right? And because the dollar dominance is key, then you can't keep growing your balance of the amount of money that you owe in terms of the treasuries. Why you can keep increasing it? Because there is no way you can't lose, because if you need more, you just print more money to repay your debt. And since the reserve currency is a dollar, we're good to go. And the value maintain its value. So you see, there's 2 points that you need to understand. And why you need to understand it? Because first of all, if you're in the import-export business and the dollar right now is very weak, it is good. It is good because it means that when somebody wants to buy American goods, it's cheaper for them. I mean, the euro, believe it or not, went from $1 to $1.15. Now you could buy $1.15 for euros. You could buy $1.15 for each euro. So it's cheaper for them to come here and buy and go on vacation or whatever. And that's what Trump wants. Well, no, you got to be careful. You don't want it to be too weak. So if you're in the import-export business, that is good for you. You know, if you're exporting your stuff overseas, that's great for you. There's jobs there. So you want to, think about that for a second. Now, as far as the stock market is concerned, as far as I think the stock market is concerned, I think that you need to worry about it, because if at some point we don't get to do it, join my channel. Join my channel, because every day I come to you twice a day, and I tell you about my views. I tell you about what I have learned in business and in teaching and at universities, to basically bring you that knowledge for free, or more or less. So all I want is you just subscribe and like what you hear. But basically, that's what we're doing here. And this is important for you to understand, because the stock market right now is reacting pretty positively to everything, right? The stock market loves it. The stock market says, you know what? I like what Trump is saying. I like what's happening. I like the tariffs. The dollar is weak. It's good for exports. I mean, the guys got everything under control. The debt is out of control, but you know what? We are reserve currency, so I wouldn't worry about it. So if you hear anyone telling you that, oh, be careful, because of the big beautiful bill, this is going to be adding to the debt. Yes, it's adding to the debt, but frankly, as long as your reserve currency, you don't have to worry too much about it, quite frankly, right? And maybe there's going to be some growth that's going to pay for the debt, whatever. But the point is that the world needs dollar, because the dollar is a reserve currency. The point that you have to worry about, and that's what you need to watch out. What happens, because right now, believe it or not, in terms of foreign exchange reserves and foreign exchange transaction volume, the U.S. is 88% of FX transaction volumes. It kills everyone, right? It is a number one trend, the number one currency. So you need to make sure that is clear. Now, interest. Trump argues that the U.S. interest rates not only hurt growth, but also influence the dollar's strength. He has called for a rate cut of around 3 basis points. Trump began implementing tariffs on imports. Trump has said that he is directly tied to threat to reserving the dollar international. So Trump is really fighting it because he knows that the dollar needs to remain a reserve currency, because if it doesn't, is not a reserve currency, then everything goes away. Now, that is not going to disappear. But I had to tell you, recently, I mean, a couple of days ago in Rio, the BRICS countries got together. Brazil, India, Russia, although China wasn't there. You know, China, South America, Ethiopia, Iran, and a bunch of other countries decided to get together again and talk about the fact that this is ridiculous, that Trump is doing everything, and the tariff. They didn't mention him by name, but they got together, right, as a competing bloc of countries together against the U.S. Now, do these guys have a chance against the U.S.? Well, imagine, well, you're like a bunch of countries. I think like 8, 9, 10. How many countries in BRICS? Let me double check that for you. How many countries are in BRICS? I believe it's 16, 14, 10 countries. So you have Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. So that's a lot of countries against the U.S. Now, it's not a trade. They just sit together and talk, basically, and they haven't agreed on many things, really. But Trump sees this as a threat, right? Because if they get together and they decide, you know what, from now on, let's not use the dollar anymore. Let's use something else. You know, well, what, the Russian ruble? I mean, you have to be able to. If you take a Russian ruble and you go to Ethiopia, can you buy things with it and vice versa? I don't know if that's going to work. So they have to be very careful. But the point is, the fact alone that these people are getting together, I think, and the fact that Trump is reacting to it and saying, what the heck are you guys doing? In fact, I am on top of the tariffs that I'm giving you. I'm going to tack another 10% tariffs on you because of we got together and because of the way you talked about us. Even though they didn't really talk about Trump and the U.S., but obviously they can't stand the dominance of the U.S. But unfortunately, which other country has the withhold, has the ability, has the laws, right? The laws, most importantly. Remember, this country, the U.S., was created by a bunch of people in Philadelphia in 1776, where they sat down and they say, okay, let's write down the law of this country and the Declaration of Independence, and this is one of the few countries where you can actually, you say, okay, we start now, right? No other countries is like that. Other countries kind of bunch of people in the wilderness fighting and going into the forest, coming out of the forest, killing other people, taking over, and growing and say, okay, I am the king and this is what I decide. And then, but the U.S., very, I mean, they have a document, everything is signed. And of course, the U.S. was very lucky at its offset to have quite a few very smart and wise people like Washington and Jefferson and Franklin. And so all these people really gave it about. To give you an idea about Washington, for example, yeah, he was a great warrior. No, let me tell you something of Washington to give you an idea of the kind of people they were. Once he became president, they reelected it again, and he said, okay, I'll do it because the country needs me to put it together. Then they wanted him to be president a third time, and he said, no, that's it. I want to go back to my farm. I want to go back to my town. I don't want to be president anymore. And when the King of England, King George, heard about that, he said, I want to meet this man. You mean this man could have been the king of a huge territory, and he opted it to go back farming? Exactly. So that kind of foundation. Now, of course, I'm not saying the U.S. is perfect. I mean, did some terrible things, but the point is, in terms of laws and structures and history, it is a lot more stable. It is a lot more stable than these other countries that are trying to get together and somehow say, you know what, we are going to be the reserve currency. Now, one thing that can happen, though, one thing that can happen is that Russia, India, China, in that area of the world, I'm not even talking about Russia, really, really Asia. 10% of the land mass has 50% of the people. If they wanted, at some point, they could just say, you know what, forget the dollar. I am not selling anything to the U.S. anymore because right now, China is having issues because Trump is saying 50% tariffs for you, and but China, China needs to deal with the U.S. They have to deal with the U.S. because they need to sell the stuff that they're producing. Right now, China has a huge deflation problem, right? Meaning that they got so much stuff they don't know who to sell it to, and if now Trump is saying, why you want to sell it to us? 50%. And they're saying, this is going to be expensive, but what choice do we have? We have to sell the stuff. Now, of course, because of the system of government, they could say, no, we're not doing it. Now, of course, what happens is these people are in the factory floor, they keep making all this stuff, right? They're making it. Who are you going to sell it to? And you're going to pay these people for something that you can't sell? So these people are going to lose their job. You're going to have all these Chinese workers without job, and that's not going to be a good definition. Now, the thing that the U.S. wants from China are the rare minerals. They want the rare minerals. Why do they want the rare minerals? They want the rare minerals because it helps in the construction of weapons. And that's what they like it. That is what they want, the rare minerals. And that is what it's important. So what we're talking about, really, we're talking about the ability for the U.S. to actually become stronger. So basically the answer to the question is, does the U.S. have is the U.S. losing the battle? No, the U.S. is not losing the battle with the currency, because even though BRICS is trying to get in there. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, by the way. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I want to bring up topics every single day. You may not like this particular topic I'm talking about. That's okay. Tomorrow I'll bring you another topic because I want you to be informed. I want you to know what's going on. You need to be informed for what? For your job, for your portfolio and things like that. Now, why is it important to subscribe to this channel? Because I am always looking out for you and looking for black swan. I'm looking for things that are going to go bad so that you're aware of it. And right now, one thing that could go bad is that the dollar could lose its status as a reserve currency. It is not happening, right? Because 88% of foreign transactions are done in the US. But if that number starts weakening and weakening and weakening, you need to worry about it. Because obviously, then how are you going to refinance the debt? The US debt, how is that going to be refinanced? That's going to be much more difficult to do. So my subscribers, I want you to learn. I want you to understand. I want you to realize what's happening, because one thing you don't want is, obviously, the more you listen to the big channels, the Bloomberg and the CNBC and all that, then at the end of the day, what are they really telling you, right? What are they telling you? They're telling you what they want you to know. But why do they want you to know these things? But because they want you to listen, right? CNBC and Bloomberg and these guys are not going to tell you, don't invest in the stock market. All the people are going to tell you, yeah, buy, get in the stock market, get in the stock market. Why? Because the more money you put in the stock market, the more money they make. Okay? So whenever somebody's talking, what you want to know is, how well have you done for yourself? How well have you done for yourself? Were you able, what has been your return on your portfolio? And most of these guys, in terms of return on the portfolio, is not that strong. Why? Because it's impossible to beat the market. So why are we listening to these people? Well, you're listening to them because it gives you the feeling, the impression that you understand what's happening. But I'm telling you one thing right now, my friends, is that nobody could predict the stock market. Nobody understands what drives the stock market. And more difficult for you out there is that you say, well, let me open the newspaper so I could find out what's going on. No, the papers only tell you one thing. All of these people only tell you one thing: how much money you can make. Right? Wow, look, the big news right now is look, Nvidia is $4 trillion. Nvidia is $4 trillion. Look, the stock has been going up. Why didn't you buy when nobody wanted it, when the deep freeze thing happened? Why come you didn't buy it? You should have bought it. So they're focusing on the return because that's the only thing that you can understand, right? You know that one is less than two, right? And three is more than one. So you understand that you want to make 5,000% instead of 100%. One thing that they're not telling you, do you know what they're not telling you? None of these people are telling you. Bloomberg, CNBC, they are not telling you the amount of risk in the market. They are not telling you the amount of risk in the economy. Why? Because you wouldn't understand the way they are demonstrating risk. It's a very complex thing to calculate. You know, what is the risk of a stock? The risk of what? The risk of it going up, going down? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, by the way. I try to, as much as possible, teach you something, but also tell you what are the risks in the market, in the economy, and potentially your job, obviously, because we're having lots of issues. Now, right now, I have to say one thing. I mean, love it or hate it, Trump has got this thing under control. He's got the war thing taken care of, right? For now. He's got the 5% NATO. Gotta give him credit for that. He did the big, beautiful bill. You gotta give him for that too. And now he's dealing with the tariffs. And on top of that, number five, he got the Supreme Court to say, you know what, leave the man alone, let him do his thing. We cannot stop him. And then, of course, unfortunately, the Democrats, I mean, they have no leg to stand on. They lost all credibility. So he's got free reign. Now, free reign could be a good thing. You know, Singapore did very well under one ruler. Okay. Is Donald Trump that ruler that's going to make everything come out all right? Long term, not short term, long term. Because you're going to say, well, the market is going up right now under Trump. That's great. Wait, hold on. The market went back up. Yes, it did a big V, okay, because it lost all of value. But you know, but that V, see that V that everyone shows you, that you say, oh, it went up, went up. What is the riskiness of that V? This is risky. You know, you got to calculate that risk. But you mean you could just drop like that? I don't know if it's not going to happen again. How do I know I'm not going to drop the value is not going to drop again? How do I know? Right? How do I calculate this risk? They're not telling you about that because then we're talking about risk, about things going bad. Then people don't invest. They're going to say, well, why don't I take a look at real estate instead? Right? So that is the reason why you need to understand what is happening. And right now, as far as foreign exchange and as far as the dollar is concerned, the dollar is still very strong. The dollar is used everywhere. There is no replacement for the dollar yet. So don't worry too much about that. Don't worry about the huge amount of debt. When I say don't worry, I'm not saying, you know, forever, okay? Because nothing is forever, unfortunately. But the thing is, when you listen to certain channels and newspaper or whatever, they will hype on the fact that the debt, look, he did the big, beautiful bill and the debt is very high. Oh my God, this is not going to be good. So you could always I could always give you argument for both sides at the end of the day. I could tell you this is good and this is bad and this is why this is good and this is why this is bad, right? So unfortunately, what happens to most people is that, well, they tune in to channels that tell them what they want to hear, right? If you're a kid, right, you don't want to be told you don't know anything, and you want to be told this Santa Claus. Do we have Santa Claus? Does this exist? Is there Santa Claus? Yes, there is Santa Claus. Oh, okay. So tell me, mommy and daddy, tell me Santa Claus is gonna. Yeah. Santa Claus is real, right? That's what they tell you all day long. So as far as the current, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You need to subscribe to this channel. Why? Let me give you 5 seconds. Every day I come to you twice a day. I give you all the information or the view. It's a personal view. It's a different view, but it's a view that is not tied to interests, right? I'm not selling commercials, right? Because imagine you are Bloomberg and you ask a portfolio manager, what do you think is going to happen in the market? Sell everything. Sell. Everything is going to collapse. Then you get another guy, and they're all saying the same thing. People get out of the stock market, then nobody cares to watch Bloomberg anymore, right? Because what's the point? So they got to keep you in the game. They have to keep you in the game. It's kind of like a casino. They want you to stay in the game. Why? Because it makes them money, right? The more people stay in the game, the more people watch the news, the more people watch Bloomberg, the more money they make. And as simple as that, right? So that's what's happening here. Okay? So that's what we need to do. We need to be focused on exactly what is happening. And what's happening right now, my friends? The dollar is strong. It is losing its value against other currency, but that's a different topic, right? You don't mind it losing its value against different topic because simply make it easier for US to sell their goods because it's cheaper. So that means that you're not going to have a stock market crash because the dollar is getting weaker. That's not going to happen, at least not this time. But you need to watch it. And you say, well, what am I watching? Well, you have to make sure that well, first, if you join my channel and my Patreon channel, every day I give you views on all these things. You know, where's the dollar? Where's the 10-year treasury? What's happening? You need to be informed about what's important. And I know what's important because I use it for myself and I did pretty well for myself. And I want you to do the same way. I want you to understand. I want you to make money in the stock market. But most importantly, I want you not to lose any money. I am focused on the black swan. I am focused on what could go wrong. Because if you understand what could go wrong, then you can avoid losing money. Look what happened. You know, all it took is everybody was doing great, right? Unless you're Tesla. And then Trump announced the tariffs. And then we did this. Just like that. Just like that. And believe it or not, the stock market right now is actually a bit overvalued to my taste. In Europe is a lot less valued. That's why they're doing much better. So I'll be very careful about the stock market right now. The stock market is doing great because it lost everything that is recovered. Don't forget to join the channel, by the way, because I am looking out for you. I am looking out for things that could go wrong. Not a great job, but rather avoid losing money than trying to make money and then lose it all over again. In 1987, the stock market lost 20% in one day. What do you think happened in 2008? What do you think happened in 2020? Okay, so you need to be very careful of what's going on out there because otherwise you're going to take a bet. You are going to lose a lot of money and you don't want to lose what you have, right? You're about to retire. Is that the time you want to lose 50% of your portfolio? Because obviously as a market crash, you're going to sell. And that's the problem. So let's be careful. The reason we're talking about the dollar today is because the dollar is tied very strongly to our ability to refinance our debt. Now, I just want to say something is that the reason we're having this issue with the debt and the dollar has nothing to do with Donald Trump. That started in 1944 with the Bretton Woods, when they decided at that time that the U.S. was going to be use its currency as a reserve currency, and everyone would have to use dollars to do anything, and the dollar would be backed by gold. But then in 1970, Nixon, who said basically, now let's remove the dollar. Nixon, by the way, Nixon had a very interesting story with his Fed chair, Arthur Burns, who was literally in his pocket, which is kind of what Trump wants to do with Powell. He wants him out and he wants a new guy in. In fact, I believe that the market right now, is looking beyond what's happening with Powell, and it's actually expecting the new guys to come in to reduce rate. Therefore, the market is going out. It's kind of a little bit perverse. But remember what happened to Nixon. It didn't end up well for him. I mean, the Fed is supposed to be independent, and I mean, Trump doesn't make any bounds about it. He wants a guy that's going to be working for him, and obviously he wants rates to go lower, which I think is great, right? Lower rates as long as you don't have inflation, because then you're going to make inflation worse. And the worst things that happen to a currency is for it to lose its value through inflation. That is what you need to worry about. That is what you need to be concerned about. So you don't want to have this happening. Join this channel, by the way. Join this channel, because what I do for you is I look for things that are going to go wrong. It doesn't cost you anything. Just click subscribe, click that you like the video. And I mean, look at my history. Right? I've been doing this for quite some time. So I have an idea, I have a vision, I have an understanding at what's happening. And in terms of the dollar is safe for now. Most everyone is using the dollar as a currency in terms of foreign exchange, 88%. SWIFT, more than 58%. In fact, the dollar is so strong that Biden used it as a weapon. That's why they called it the weaponization of the dollar. You say you don't play gold, you don't play nice with us, then you can't use the SWIFT system. Then you can't exchange money anymore. That was a bad thing. That was a bad thing that he did, because then they realized, whoa, so now the dollar decides, BNP Paribas, a long time ago, good customer of mine, what they did, right, they were charged $4 billion of what they did, and they threatened them. They threatened them by taking him out of the dollar system. They say, whatever, how much do I have to pay? $4 billion, psh, I'm paying. Lots of bonuses got lost that year. So you have to understand what is happening with this market, and this is what this channel is about. This channel is going to tell you exactly. I'm not going to tell you which stock to buy and where's the market heading and it's going to go up, it's going to go down. No, the way we do it, we look at what could go wrong, find the probability of that going wrong. So right now, the market is doing fantastic. And it should be doing fantastic, even with the threats of all these tariffs. But what could change things is if the economy starts to slow down, right? Because all that uncertainty, don't look at the stock market only. There's also the business people. What are the business people doing? Maybe they're saying, you know what, this is too confusing. And I know for a fact that right now, and you could see in the numbers, nobody is really firing people, but they're not hiring if you're leaving, right? So they are, and on top of that, because of the immigration situation, we let go of a lot of people which we're not replacing. So you got to be careful about that. You have to be careful that the weakness doesn't come from the economy, because if it comes from the economy, join my channel, like this video, so that I come back to you, and it doesn't cost you anything, first of all, and second, I'm out there every day looking for things. Every day I have an interesting topic, and you learn something, right? There's nothing wrong with learning something, and especially in the environment that we're in right now with Trump, which is extremely volatile. But I hate to say it, right now he knows what he's doing. He's taking care of business. He got the war taken care of. He's got the BRICS taken care of. He wants to go after them. He's sending letters out. He stopped the war. He got 5% NATO with the Daddy-O thing. He got the big, beautiful bill. So he's controlling all this. I think my view, the risk that we have is something happens to Trump. That's my concern, right? Or, he doesn't have that much time left, right? So if something happens to him, then all these people are going to go their own way. And then you're going to have a problem. Who's going to replace him? Vance? Vance has been very quiet recently. Have you noticed? You haven't heard too much from him. Why is that? I'll tell you why. The reason you're not hearing from Vance is because with this thing with um, with Iran and Israel, right? What happened there? Vance came out and said, "Well, hold on. Yeah, I mean there's a probability that we haven't destroyed everything, and there's 800 pounds of plutonium running around that is 60% enriched, and that could be." What are you talking about? I just said destroyed everything, and you're going around telling me that, well, there's a report and since that day, you haven't heard from Vance. And that is how Trump deals with people. You're in or you're out. Have you heard from Tulsi Gabbard, the National Security Advisor? She's gone. Nobody hears from her, right? She's not invited to anything. Why? Because she also said, well, actually, we don't know if this thing was destroyed. Yes, it was destroyed. Yes, we're the greatest. Yes, we're going to achieve. Yes, everything is fine. Well, yeah, but not real. That's it, out. So be careful, right? Because no one can replace Trump right now. And this whole thing works as long as he keeps the wheel turning and faster, right? I mean, he just announced 200% for pharmaceutical, 50% on copper. What do you mean 200% pharmaceutical? That's right. Let's make everything in the US. We don't want your stuff 200%. This is crazy. But yet the market this time didn't react, right? The market said, you know what? He's got this. And we'll see and anyway, we're going to get a new chair next year, right? And he's going to lower rates, and that's all we want. That's all we care about. The market, believe it or not, the stock market just wants to go up because every day people are putting money in their 401k. Money keeps coming in. So the money keeps going up, right? The thing is, it only goes down when there's a surprise, like COVID. The what happened with the tariffs when you have a big surprise. That's the only time the market goes up. Otherwise, it goes down. Otherwise, the market keeps going up and up and up. So what you want to worry about, it's not so much to look for winners. There's always going to be winners. You need to make sure you understand the downside. What could happen? Don't forget to join this channel. Don't forget to join this channel because what I do is I will look for what could go wrong. My years of experience, I want you to do as well as I have. Simple as that. I'm kind of like, just giving the stuff away, giving the knowledge away, giving the experience away. And all you have to do is listen, I don't know, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. But then you will be armed, you will have the knowledge that you need for you to understand what's happening in this world. Because the more you listen to people, the more you listen to other people talking, especially, the quote unquote media, yeah, obviously they want you to listen, so they tell you what you want to hear. What they tell you? Keep investing in the stock market. Stock's going to go up. Trump is bad. Trump is good, right? The U.S. is in trouble, depending if you're on one side. The U.S. is doing great. We're kicking them all out. We're losing lots of people of employment. So where do you look? Right? You have to look in the middle. You have to look in the middle. And for you to look in the middle, you need to understand what's happening. If you don't understand what's happening, then you can't possibly decide what to do. And it's just not the stock market, right? If you're looking for a job right now, right, where should you be? Where should you go into AI? Everybody says AI. Should I go into? I definitely don't want to be involved in trades, right? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're right now, the dollar is very weak, so that means that if you're exporting, you're gonna have lots of no issue. Now, of course, let's be careful about the export, right? One thing we didn't talk about is right now, all these countries, and this is how tight this thing, Trump's got this thing together. All these countries have not retaliated against the US because they realize this guy's crazy. If we retaliate against him, he has nothing to lose, and he's got the wind behind him, and he's going. So then no one is retaliating, either like Taiwan, Vietnam, they say 25%. Yes, sir. I'll pay the 25%. China say yes. Okay, fine. 50. I gotta sell the stuff. I gotta sell the stuff because I'm having deflation. Right? China has a huge deflation problem right now, so they need to sell. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. and like this video. So China has a huge deflation problem. So they're trying to, they gotta sell the stuff. Yeah, they don't have the ability. I think what happens, they were planning at some point to let go of the U.S., but Trump came in too soon. He said, "I know what you're doing. Right now you're gonna stop. Right now you're gonna pay me. And by the way, I don't care so much about the 50%. What I want from you, China, I want the rare minerals. That is what I want because I need it for my weapons. And by the way, no, that's a huge black swan, right? But that's out there somewhere. Hopefully, it doesn't come out. But I will tell you that China has is building a lot of weapons. The U.S. only has a week worth of missiles, and we see now how important the missiles are with Israel and Iran, right? While China is having a lot of issues, but they're building their weapon, they're building and building and building, and they're watching Taiwan, right? Not so much that they want Taiwan, no. Taiwan is going to be the clinch in case something really bad happened internally. For example, the people are out of jobs and nobody's buying from China, they're pissed. So they're going to say, right, it's not my fault, it's Trump's fault. So they're going to go out and start something with China, with Taiwan, knowing the US is going to go in, and then they're going to go at it. There's a war going on. There's a war being prepared, so be aware of that. Now that's a huge black swan because then they're going to realize what the US is really about. When was the US, when was the last time the US actually won a war? Not so long ago? No, a long time ago. World War II. Yeah. Yes, Trump dropped these 2 bombs in Iran. Yes. But do we have the ability, does the US have the ability to go on like Russia is doing right now for the past 3 years? I mean, that's preparation. That requires, right? The US does not have the ability to keep on going. In fact, what happened during Israel and Iran war, what happened is, Iran, I mean, Netanyahu came to Trump and said, I'm running out of ammunition here. And he says, well, I can't give it to you. In fact, don't believe me, but recently, you probably wrote about Zelensky, where he said, well, what about my weapon? And Trump said, whoa, hold on. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. Okay, well, so there's an issue with the amount of missiles available because you're giving the stuff away to Zelensky, then you're giving it to Israel. You're running out of them. You're running out of missiles. So be very careful. So that is what needs to be. So in conclusion, I will say this. I will say that the U.S. dollar is strong. Nothing to worry about right now. Look at it, be careful because it could become an issue much later. The dollar could weaken at some point, right? Now, how do you know if the dollar is going to weaken or not? Well, look at the numbers. You need to look, don't tell them because if they tell you the dollar is weak, it's already too late. You need to know ahead of time what to look for. You need to look ahead what's going to happen before it happens. This is what this channel is about. That is how you make money. You make money when you buy when everybody else is selling, and you sell when everybody else is buying. And this is what this channel is about. This channel is about looking for things. And right now we have 5 major issues you need to worry about. The dollar is a reserve currency. The national debt. Now, I'm not saying for Monday morning, right? I'm talking about at some point. The tariffs. What's going to happen? Well, we know what's happening. They're charging. No. What happened when they decide to say, you know what? I'm going to charge you too. Screw that. That's too much money you're charging us. Then you need to worry about, you know what you need to worry about? You need to worry about Iran and Israel. Why? This is not over. Listen, look at the news. I mean, I'm not here to report the news because God knows there's enough. But right now, the Houthi just sunk a ship. Now, of course, they sunk an Iberian ship or whatever, and they're attacking another one. Who are these people? They're saying that they're doing it because of Gaza or whatever. These people are Iran's proxies. Because I don't know if you know, but the Ayatollah in Iran is the spiritual chiefs of all these outfits, the Houthis and Hezbollah and all that. He's a spiritual leader, essentially. Now, how long of that Trump is going to take until he says, you know what, that's it. I am going to go in there. You're going to allow us to go in there. I am going to check the 800-pound gorilla of where that thing is, right? And then, and then. The thing is, how are you going to do this without troops on the ground? How are you going to do that just bombing them? Will they accept that? Will that not bring, the U.S. into the fray all over again? Which is something that Trump has to be careful. That's a risk that he has right there. That's another risk because the MAGA people do not want Trump involved in another of those wars. He kind of went in there. Remember that conversation between Ted Cruz and Tucker? Where Tucker talks, in fact, Tucker is over there interviewing the Iranian guy. He said to him, do you know how many people in Iran? He says, I don't know. Do you know who they are? I don't know. So you don't know and you want regime change? What does that mean? So these were two Trump people going at each other. And then, without getting not too much into the specific, but yesterday, somebody brought up the Epstein file and the name on the file, and Elon Musk had mentioned that Trump was on that list, but then he said, I apologize, I didn't mean anything by it. So now people say, where is the list? And then the Attorney General says, well, no, there is no list. Whoa, what do you mean there's no list? So, right? Let's be careful here. Let's be careful as to what's happening. Let's be careful of the risk because major risks for Trump is the economy goes weak and he loses the MAGA people. Trump cannot afford to lose the MAGA people because the MAGA people, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Are you subscribing? I want you to subscribe so that every day, twice a day, I come around and I help you with all the risk and because the market is a very complex thing, right? The stock market it's like the clouds, literally. Yes, I mean we don't know what drives the stock market. I hate to tell you, in 1987, on October 19, the stock market went down by 20%. Hold on, let me finish the story. This is a good story. The market went down by 20%, which is unheard of, right? And the president at that time said, I want to know what happened. So he commissioned a bunch of people. He commissioned Yale, actually, to go out and survey 1,000 traders and ask them, and you could check, it's online, and ask them, why did you sell on that day? Was there a reason you sold on that day? And you know what they said? There was no news on that day that caused the stock market in 1987 to drop by 20%. So that means that there's a huge mystery, and this is what's interesting. This is where the risks are. There's a huge mystery as far as the stock market is concerned, because we don't know what drives it. Some of you are going to say, no, I know, because when I listen to Bloomberg, they show you the stock price and they show you the news and they talk about it, right? And they kind of say this one is tied to the other. No. What they're telling you is what you want to hear and what you can understand. Do you think that hedge fund managers are out there looking for the news? But the news is already too late when it comes out. You need to know, and this is what this channel is about. A lot of my students are hedge fund managers. What this channel is about is I want to tell you what's going to happen before it happens. Or at least, not predicting the future, but I want you to understand what's going to happen, or at least what could happen. Like, for example, Trump has a risk with the MAGA people. Trump has a risk with the economy. Right? These are the two things that you really cannot control. Right? You cannot control the MAGA people. You can't tell them, no, it's okay. I'm just bombing them. but I'm not going to involve in a war. Really? You can't tell the economy not to go into recession, right? You can't tell business people to say, stop hiring, hire people. Well, why am I hiring people? I don't know what's going to happen next. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of everything. Just hire the people. He cannot control. He could control Netanyahu when he told him, stop bombing. That's enough. He could control the big beautiful bill when he told the Republicans, who, by the way, never read the bill, 640 pages. These people didn't read the bill. It's amazing. He could tell them, you are going to vote for the bill, because otherwise I'm going to tell everyone that because of you, the taxes are going up. Right? So that you could control. You could control, I want the Fed chair out and I want a new guy in. That you could control. And you can't fire the Fed chair. But right now, believe it or not, there is a search going on. I believe Bassett is going to be the Treasury, the new Fed. But the point is that there's a new search going on, and it's always going on to the point where the market is already assuming that he's out, and whoever is going to be in is going to lower the rates anyway. So the market is eyeballing lowering of rates. The big risk in the market is Trump himself. Not what he's going to do, what he's not going to do. I'm talking about Trump himself. If for some reason he's not able to perform his duties, or he doesn't have the time to continue, and then he's got to stop. That is a big risk. Because, you may like the guy, you may not like the guy, but he's controlling everything right now. He's controlling amazingly enough, he's controlling everything. Everything. And now, yesterday the South African were at the White House, he may actually get the Nobel Peace Prize. Which you could, it's like amazing, really. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to this channel because I want to make sure I am reaching the right people. I want to make sure I'm going to be coming at 1 o'clock again. I'm going to give you a short, very easy way to understand what's happening, because what I think is missing in this market is someone to explain to people what's going on, right? They're telling you what's happening, okay, so that's easy, the news, you can get that. They're telling you what you want to hear, okay, but that's not going to make you money, right? Them telling you that nobody likes Elon Musk and that's why the stock is down, that doesn't help you because the stock is already down. You needed to hear that before. You should have been told sometime in January, right, when the stock went up to $500 because he was with Trump. And if you knew anything about Trump, you should see me, but nobody stays friend with Trump for too long because Trump does not have any friends per se, right? He's got contacts, he's got network, he's pure business, pure business. So at some point you were going to lose Musk. He was there running around, with a chainsaw and the sign and all that. How long do you think that was going to last? There was a sign you should have seen. There was another guy that was involved. Do you remember him? The guy that was involved in the Doge, and he said, you know what, this is not going to be good. I'm out. I'm going to be governor. Okay, I'm going to try to be governor instead. So you should have known. Someone should have told you then that this is not going to last, and people don't like what's happening with Doge, and therefore he's going to find out stuff, and then Trump is going to dump him anyway, right? These are the things that you need to know before. Which I'm telling you now. I'm not saying anything about Musk, because right now Musk is in big trouble. Musk is in big trouble for the simple reason is, Doge was one thing. You're creating another party. Do you know what's involved in creating another party? You're going to be spending 24/7 just talking to people, right? And look what's happening with your company. People are not buying the cars. It doesn't matter how great they are, and I have one. It's a fantastic car, but people are not buying the cars. That is a bad sign. That is a sign that they just don't like you. And if they don't like you, you can't force people to buy the products. So you're seeing, and then he's having issues with China. So right now, Musk is in trouble, especially when you're thinking that the stock price for Tesla is around 300. It's dropped a little bit. This thing is probably worth $250 right now. right now, but the car business is probably worth 50. Everything relies on the robotaxi and on the fact that and on the robots. But that's going to take a while. And all along, the P/E ratio is 150 times, where the market is at around 30. This is way, way, way overvalued. As long as everything is okie-dory, so Musk has to be very careful. This could be $100 stock before you know it. Okay, especially if he keeps poking at Trump, poking him, right? Poking him, and then Trump said, you know what? Let's review everything. And you know what? You're gonna need approval for the robo-taxi. You're not gonna get it, so you don't have a robo-taxi. Do you know what that means? Subscribe to this channel. I want you to like me. I want you to follow me. I want you to realize what are the issues. 5 big issues, as I said before. The first issue is the dollar as a reserve currency, meaning everybody uses a dollar. No big risk right now. The second one, tied to the first one, is a national debt, $37 trillion. At some point, you're going to need to understand it, and we're going to see this year, not forever, because $9 trillion is being refinanced, right? $9 trillion. Let's see how that gets refinanced. Probably what's going to happen is the U.S. is going to need to buy that debt back. Okay. The third thing is, what's going to happen to those tariffs? You know, are they going to react? Are they going to say, you know what, you're charging me 25%, I'm charging you 25%? Canada tried that, and they realized, you know what, we have a lot, we're going to lose a lot more than he does if it doesn't work, right? The fourth thing you need to worry about is the Iran-Israel thing. That's a problem right there. And the fifth thing is, you know, what's going on with the economy. And that is tough to manage. That is tough to know. Right now, I will tell you from what I hear from people, jobs are being offered, okay? But people that are leaving are not really being replaced. And the last number that you saw were the hundreds. So they say, oh, wow, it's 110,000. This is great. The ADP was at negative 39,000. They say, wow, we're in trouble. Obviously, all the Democrats said, you see, we're going into a recession. But then the next day, they saw that actually, you know, the creation was like 110. And the Republicans say, you see, everything is fine. Well, it's 110. Yes, it is fine. It's just last year was 160. And these numbers get revised after, which they don't pay too much attention to. Now, at the end of the day, what do you care? Well, obviously, if you're looking for a job, that's concern. And obviously, you want to worry about your portfolio. If you're about to retire, I would be very, 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 very careful. Why would I be very careful? Because there is an unpredictability to Trump, and there's a viability to Trump, and it's all about Trump. And whenever everything comes to one person, I mean, it's working right now. The U.S. is collecting about 150 billion. It's probably going to collect $200 billion in $200 billion in tariffs revenues from the tariffs. And if that thing lasts the way it's supposed to last, we're talking $2.63 trillion. This could actually pay for the big, beautiful bill that everybody is making fun of. But does Trump have 2 or 3 years, 4 years? Who's going to replace him? Who is going to replace Trump? Now, of course, you may think, well, he's not the smartest. You know, when you hear him talk, don't be fooled. This man is a machine, right? He's keeping this whole thing together by fear, by coercion, by having the right people around him. He's making decisions that, frankly, at some point will have huge, some people say disastrous, because everybody says the inflation is coming. Where's the inflation? The inflation is going to come. You see, he's going to get us into a lot of trouble. The inflation is going to come and it's going to destroy everything. And people say, well, I don't see the inflation. Where is inflation? Show me the inflation. Subscribe to this channel. I am going to give you twice a day. I'm going to give you my views, understanding, and I'm going to try to explain to you what's happening. So they're telling him, what's going on with the inflation? Right? Where's the inflation? I don't see any inflation. and the Democrats say, yeah, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Even the Fed chair say it's coming, it's coming. He's not saying it's coming. He's saying, I don't know, maybe it comes, maybe it doesn't, but in case it does, I am not going to touch the rates because I know that you want to fire me. I know that you want me to take over, right? You want me to you want to take over my job and get me out. So I'm kind of thinking and waiting. No, I mean, I have nothing to do with Trump. I just see that's what they're waiting for. They're actually waiting for this to happen, but it's not happening. And why is it not happening? Well, I believe it's not happening is because one, right? What's happening in terms of the tariffs impacting the prices, right? You're selling your thing for whatever $1, and Trump is saying no, 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 no. You gotta give me 20 cents. Oh, so I'm going to sell it for $1.20 then. Okay, but that's what creates inflation, right? But they're not. They're selling at $1, and they're still being charged 20 cents. So I think that they were making money to begin with. There's enough margins in here. I mean, take a look at, for example, Apple and these companies. They're making a huge amount of money, huge, right? And in fact, they're not paying taxes here. They're paying taxes overseas. They're not even paying taxes. So I think Trump wants to go after them. The second reason is the fact that they're afraid to really piss off Trump. You know, if you're Walmart and the stuff is costing you more money because of the 20% or the 5%, depending where you're getting the stuff from, right? You want to be the one that everyone says, aha, aha, you're increasing your prices. You are the one, Walmart or whatever, creating inflation. Because they know that Trump is crazy enough to have you all over the place and damage your brand. So they're saying, yeah, that's fine. Just pay the 5-10%. How bad could it be? How long could it last? A year? He's going to be gone eventually. So let's take a loss for a year. That's what's happening. Of course, they're telling you, no, that's not going to last forever because those prices are going to come through, right? Eventually, they have to come through. No, not necessarily. They don't have to come through. They'll take the hit over there because they were making money, the guys that are selling you the stuff to begin with. And even if they're passing it down to Walmart, then Walmart is not going to pass it to the consumer, right? And therefore, we're not seeing it. So Trump is saying, you're not seeing it. I am not seeing it. It's like when they were saying the big, beautiful bill. They say, well, he's never going to get the bill. He's not going to get the bill through. I mean, this is ridiculous. All these poor people, you're removing the Medicaid and the food stamps. Well, first of all, Medicaid is a gift, right? It's not Medicare. Medicaid is a gift, right? I mean, meaning that you're not contributing to it. So, and what he's saying is, no, if you're a single able-bodied person without what is he saying for Medicaid? If you don't have that, then you don't have to you don't have to pay for it, right? I mean, Medicaid at the end of the day was what was it? I think the way you pay for it is you basically Medicaid essentially what it does. If you need it, is to help. So you say, well, I'm not going to help the people that are by themselves, they have no dependent, and they're not working and they're illegal. You're not getting it, right? So he's going after a certain kind of people, and he's saving $1 trillion. Of course, the Democrats, I mean, they cry for 7 hours. Oh my God, look, the people are going to be in the streets. That's true. I mean, some people are going to lose it. Same thing with the food stamps. They are being a lot more judicious. They are extremely careful as to what they're going to do. But that's what they want to do. That's exactly what they want to do. What Trump wants to do, he wants to control the narratives. And how much more the narratives can you control? We'll see. Subscribe to this channel, my friends. Subscribe to this channel so I can tell you exactly what's happening in the stock market. And right now, the stock market is doing great, right? Can't go wrong. Market win this, and market win that. So what's wrong with that? What do you mean what's wrong with that? We just did a huge V, right? There's a lot of risk in this market. That tells you that the situation is extremely volatile. And when a situation is that volatile, you have to be very careful. You need to know where the risks are going to come from. And I think that the risk is going to come from 5 areas: the war, it's going to come from Iran, the Iran war, that's probably going to start again, the tariffs, the economy, the debt. There's a lot of things that can happen. A lot of things that could happen that nobody understands. They tell you about it, they talk to you about it, but the thing is, you don't know what the riskiness is. And for you to make money in the stock market, you need to know what's going to happen before it happens. Let me give you a case in point. If I take a coin, right, and I drop it, let me finish. Let me finish, and you'll see where I'm going with this. If you take a coin and you drop it, what is the likelihood that it's going to hit the floor? 100%, right? How are you able to tell me that? Because I drop it fall. But why is it? Because there is someone that wrote the law that says the law of gravity. We're able to explain it, right? So what makes the stock market move? Is it luck or is it something else? What? Don't forget, in 1987, when the market dropped by 20%, they asked everyone, what caused the market drop? And they couldn't tell you why. This is what's a great thing about the stock market. We don't know what's driving this thing. We don't. Because if we knew, we would all be making money, right? We don't know what's driving it. And yet, we need it. Why do you think a surgeon makes, maybe, if you're really, really, really good, you make like $1 million. But the most successful hedge fund manager is worth $40 billion. Jim Simmons, check it out. How can you make that kind of money? You can make that kind of money because you're able to identify risk. Do you know how much money Universa made? You could check these things out. Universa, which is basically Spitznagel, and our friend Taleb Nassim, they made 4,000% during COVID. That's a lot of money, right? Don't forget, are you subscribing to this channel? I don't see you subscribing. I would like you to subscribe to this channel. Don't just be passive, because if you don't subscribe, what's going to happen? You're going to miss all my updates. And I want to make sure you get updated on everything. So don't forget, tomorrow I will be back. I will be back with more news, more information. Not news, I'm sorry. I'm not giving news. I give information, and I help you understand what's happening. Why do I do that? Because how'd you make money, right? You make money by understanding what's happening, right? How'd you make money? When I was in real estate, for example, as I was renting properties, and I said, this is great. You buy the house, put somebody in, right, and you collect the money. It's just great money. I think the return was 50% before expenses. That's not bad, and about 20% after expenses. So I said, this is a great way to make money. You sit there and collect money, and people work, and they give you money. And the thing is, one thing they don't tell you about real estate is what is the risk that you are taking when you go into real estate. What is the risk that somebody's going to pay you? What is the risk that something is going to break in your house? That you're fixing. Well, when it breaks, I fix it. Yeah, but what's the riskiness? Right? What is a risk that you're going to pass inspection? Nobody measures those risks. And you know why? Because it's not possible. How can you measure the risk on one property? You have this property, a corner right there, great property. How do you know how much money you make on this property? Well, I'm looking at the historical amount of money we made. Yeah, but that amount of money that you made is that unit alone with these people. But now you're going to get new people. Okay, what is the likelihood? And that actually happened to me once, right? Where the gutter was going to fall, And the tenant didn't say anything. And that's when I got out of this business. Because I said, wait a second. If this gutter falls on somebody's head, even if you have insurance, I mean, you're gonna be locked in. You're gonna be locked in for years. You're gonna be locked in trial. So what is the riskiness of that? I'm not able to calculate the risk. The risk of this. For example, the way you calculate risk is very simple. I think I did in one of my previous videos. I said the riskiness of them passing the beautiful bill was 50%. The riskiness that this tariff thing comes out okay is about 50%. So what are the risks that two of those things happen at the same time is 50 times 50. So it's about 25%. Right? And the more you tag up 5%, 2%, you multiply, then before you know it, you get down to 4%. I believe there's a 4% chance that the war in Iran and Israel doesn't happen. The big beautiful bill happens. That the tariff thing comes out okay, right? That there's no reset. That's like 4% chance that all of these things work together. And that's what I think there's a fair amount of risk built in the system. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, as I want you to understand what's happening. I want you to realize the risk, because what you want to look at the riskiness of everything, not so much, what you think is going to happen. I will see you tomorrow. So subscribe before I quit. Otherwise, you will not find me again. And then you could just, if you don't like it, you don't have to. It's just a click. But I need the subscription. I need the views. Okay. So let's do it, and I will see you tomorrow on another interesting topic.